Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, I tell you what, it has been a different week around Florida this week. In fact, we haven't caught up in 2 weeks. Last week, we devoted the time to try to get people to sign the SaveTheMahi.com petition. I certainly hope you have. We're trying to get involved in lowering the limits on mahi so we can all catch a few more and nobody have huge catches and nobody have catches of no fish. We figure that way, with a little bit of limiting of the commercial harvest, we can bring back mahi to knocking down the outrigger baits off Florida. But this week, we're back to the Action Spotter format, and we'll be going around the state to see where the fishing's been the best. We're going to make a quick stop in Paradise, check in with my buddy Craig Sutton, and find out what's going on over at Nosara, and then it'll be all Florida for them for the next hour, down the East Coast, through the Keys, up the West Coast, out the Panhandle. You know the route. Let's get it started. As always, this week's Action Spotter, like all our Action Spotter podcasts, are brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat span offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. Let's see what Craig's up to in Nosara, Costa Rica. Mighty glad to be talking to Costa Rica this week and every week. Gosh, seems like they never have bad fishing. Let's swing over in Nosara and check with Craig Sutton. Craig, how we doing?
I'm good, Captain Ricky. Real good, sir.
Good. I guess some days we all have bad days catching, but there ain't no such thing as bad days fishing, is there?
No, not in my world.
I know what you mean.
As long as I come back in one piece, nobody gets hurt, I'm happy.
I'm with you. Now, are you back in full swing now? All the boats back in the water?
Oh, yeah.
We fishing hard?
Yep. We've been, I think we've run like 5 trips so far, maybe 6 trips since the first. And, you know, we're just kind of getting warmed up. We got a lot of clients coming in this week and next week. And then, of course, Thanksgiving week got a real big week for us. But, you know, it's been good. A lot of mahi, but no real big ones yet. But that's not unusual. We won't get our big ones until later on in the month. But lots of yellowfin, those 20, 30, and a couple of them look like they were probably 40-pound yellowfin with some sailfish mixed in. But they're fishing green water. They've yet to find the good blue water. And, you know, because the rain's still going on in the south part of Costa Rica. So that's the water. The water we fished today was in the south part of Costa Rica yesterday. So, you know, it's normal this time of year, but, you know, I think once we get the water cleans up and we get a little more blue, we'll do real good. I mean, yeah. David did good inshore, hit a couple big jacks and a big snapper. Wasn't a Canberra, but it looked like it's probably 18 pounds and, you know, a couple yellowfin to go with it. I mean, it's good action. Good.
Well, wait a minute
now.
If
it worse, but it's always get better.
If it was 18 pounds and it wasn't a Cubera, what kind of snapper was it?
You know, it didn't have the stripes on it like a mullet snapper, but I think it was a mutt, but it didn't have the yellow tail. It had a big tail like a mutton, but you know, I guess it might be our version of mutt. But nice. Looked like it was good eating to me.
Did he have the spot on his shoulder?
Nope.
Huh. I don't know. You got me on that one. I would say.
Well, we got 3 or 4 versions of snappers down there that, you know, we get that mullet snapper, not many catches, but if you ever get a chance to eat a mullet snapper, it's one of the best tasting fish in the ocean. They feed on crabs, so their meat tastes a lot like lobster.
Well, can we come up with a better name for him? When you think of mullet, all I can think of is cutting him in half and smoking him.
Well, he's got those stripes on him like a mullet. It's
okay.
A little different shape than a normal snapper. He's a little more longer than he is tall. But, you know, super, super goodie. I mean, very, very goodie.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Right now, if people want to give their significant other a trip to Costa Rica, wink, wink, Debbie Riles, for Christmas, how do they go about setting it up? And come on, Craig, help our listeners out. What month do they want to be there?
Well, you know, I'm always partial toward that end of May through August. So when I always get you down there and we get all our sponsors and vendors, we do pretty much 99% of our TV shows that time frame because we have to have that big wow fish to make the show work. But you know what? I just tell people all the time, man, give me that credit card and we'll make it happen whenever the date is. You know?
Well, there's a man that speaks the truth. Okay.
Well,
great.
I mean, you know, they are, you know, I get all these guys, these moon guys, and I used to be a moon guy 12, 14, 15 years ago. And then I had like 3 or 4 trips in a row. I timed them by coming up to the full moon. I thought that was the proverbial secret sauce. And the fish forgot to show up. And then after talking to my captains and stuff in our area, and I repeat, only our area because the current is always really strong, it's that happy medium where it's not too much current and not too little of a current, you know. Kind of like here, but here you can count on the current getting strong around the full moon and not being too much current for the trolling fish. But down there, we've got so much current that once it gets to the full moon, sometimes that full moon, it's too much current. Because I fished it, you know, 5 days before the full moon every day. And then as I got closer to the moon, the fishing just shut down. And it was just, you know, crazy 4, 5, 6 knot current. I mean, it's not unusual. I mean, it's always about 3 knots, 1 to 3 knots of current, which I think that's probably optimum. But, you know, who knows, man? It's fishing. It's not catching.
Yeah, but I'm like you, Craig. You give me 3 knots, and I don't like no knots. No. I don't like a dead current. No. But I like 3 knots of current. Give me 3.5 knots. If it gets over 5 knots, I get nervous. All right, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yep.
We look forward to talking with you next week.
Sounds good to me, Ricky. Have a good one.
Craig Sutton from Nosara Paradise Rentals in Nosara, Costa Rica. All right, let's check in the northeast corner. You know David Voorhees is waiting with a report for us. Captain David, how we doing?
Doing good, buddy.
Well, I tell you, as fishermen, we always deal with weather, but this has been something else the last week, hasn't it?
Man, it is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That northeaster gusted up to 50 knots, like we talked about on our Saturday radio show. But the thing that I've never seen is the level of water that it brought into our inland system.
It'll be a northeaster to remember. I can tell you that much. You know, the 40-some years I've been here, I don't recall seeing tides quite this high. And I'm even talking about some of the hurricanes we've had to skim the coast have not pushed in quite this much water. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot of damage on Heckscher Drive, David. The whole west end of Heckscher Drive looked to me like almost every house had water in it.
Yep.
That's crazy.
But very little fishing this week. Nobody's been able to get out. So as far as, you know, giving you a fishing report, we really don't have much to go on. So what I figured we could talk about is how am I going to approach this coming week? You know, we've got water that's been high, way up in the grass. We've got, you know, now we've got water temperatures that have dropped into the low 70s. I'm talking about all the way down to 71 in some places. 73 is about the average. But that's from, you know, 74, 75. So, you know, that's a 5 degree temperature drop, which is quite a bit, you know, for just a matter of few days, you know, just for 3 or 4 days. That's quite a temperature drop. And that has a tendency to shut these fish down. You know, makes fishing tough. Fish don't like those sudden drops. They don't mind the drops that are gradual and they have time to get acclimated to them. But when they don't have time, when they get these sudden drop in temperatures, it doesn't give them time to get acclimated, and they just sort of, you know, shut down. I mean, nothing you can say, but you know, it'll be tough to get a bite these next few days. But it will be, you know, I'll be out there giving it my best. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do a couple of things. And the first thing to start out is I'm going to pay attention to the waterways, because when you get these floods like this, it has a tendency to push out some stuff that's been lodged up into these marshes, big logs, parts of people's docks are going to float away. So you got to pay real close attention when you're on the intercoastal waterway up here these next few days, because there's a big chance there could be some big logs floating down the intercoastal, big chunks of docks or stuff. You just never know. So be very careful, very aware. I hope you're not out there running at night, but
no.
Pay attention to the waterways. There could be some floating debris. The other thing I'm going to do is I'll probably, because of all this water we've gotten, I'm assuming that a lot of our shrimp got flushed out, got pushed out. That was a lot of fresh water. We got well over 2 inches of rain on top of these extremely high tides. So I got a feeling a lot of our the shrimp that had a lot of these fish fired up are going to be flushed out. So although I'll probably pick up a few shrimp this week, I'm probably going to start going with mud minnows. And mud minnows for Northeast Florida is my bait of choice inshore for the winter months, mainly because that's about the only thing up here for these fish to eat, and they sort of get acclimated to it. The other thing I like mud minnows for is mud minnows tend to put out a little bit more vibration than a shrimp does. A shrimp tends to sit there, and most of the effects you're going to get out of a shrimp is its smell. And but with the mud minnows, you're going to get an extra bonus. Of course, you're going to get the smell of that minnow. But the other thing you're going to get is when it's sitting there paddling and wiggling, and anybody who's used mud minnows, they are wigglers, and they put out a lot of vibration. So that's going to give you a little added advantage. The other thing I'm going to do is really slow things down. I'm going to stay with what I've been doing. Check the shallow waters. If I don't find them in the shallow waters, I'm going to go deep. I'm going to, the first thing I'll do is get out and try to just find some fish. Are they going to be back in the creeks? Are they going to be on the drop-offs? Are they going to be on the mud flats? I mean, all these great areas that we got to fish. Are they going to be up tight to the oysters? You're going to have to get out, and it's going to be like starting all over again is the way I look at it after we have conditions like we've just had these last few days. So it's going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's going to be fishable. I think you can get out there. I think we can do it. Keep a positive attitude. Keep chugging away. I'm going to have a tendency to go away from the artificials, mainly because of that temperature drop. That's going to bring these fish, that's going to bring their body temperature down. So they're going to be very sluggish. So we're going to fish slow. We're going to use mud minnows, and we're going to cover lots of areas. In other words, we're going to look, mouth of feeder creeks on the outgoing tides, the base of these mud flats when the tide gets low, up against the grass on the high tide. We're going to go back in the creeks, hit the deep holes. We're going to hit the shallow points coming off an intercoastal. We're going to just search until we figure it out.
Yeah, David, that's all excellent advice. I certainly agree with 100% of it. And I can promise you the shrimp have poured out, because at the very worst of the Northeaster, I'm talking about Saturday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, it's cranking out of the Northeast, 40 knots. It is raining. It is cold. And every one of those big steel-hulled shrimp boats we got tied up in Mayport are headed to the east. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. I don't want to be a shrimper for a living. I don't care how big your boat is. Rough is rough, buddy. I got to tell you.
This is when I'm so thankful I'm an inshore guide.
Yes, sir.
I'd hate to be an offshore guy, because I know these guys are shut down. They were reporting 10-foot seas out there at one point, so I know it got pretty tossed around out there, pretty nasty. So,
well, I talked to Jeff Crabtree about that. He was in the El Pescado tournament last week, finished third. Congratulations to his crew. All those boats were out there sail fishing, and he said it was every bit of 5 to 7 with an occasional 8. And, buddy, that's, of course, they're big sport fish boats. There was one 39-foot center console there, but there was only one, and all the rest of them were big sport fish boats. And I got to tell you, that's not my kind of weather anymore. But, David, as always, we appreciate the heck out of it. That's a great report. What I'm hoping for is that this step down, it certainly brings us into a new season, water temperature-wise. We're getting into fall. but I'm glad. I hope it doesn't continue drastic drops like that, because I sure am in love with our snook population, and I don't want to see a repeat of 2010. And I know you know what I'm talking about, but
I know, but it's coming, Rick.
yeah, but
it's coming.
if it'll just come down one step at a time and give them time to get acclimated, they'll be able to get through it okay. Thank you, David.
All right, tight lines, Ricky.
We appreciate it. We'll talk with you next week. Captain David Voorhees. Now it's time to find out what happened in Central Florida, where I don't think it got quite as cold, and I'm not sure the wind blew quite as hard. Jim, are you there?
Well, no to the first and yes to the second. and I'm here. Yeah, it was it's been blustery. It's been nasty, overcast, rain, blustery. Monday was the first day we got a chance to get back out on the water. It was pretty calm in the morning. I stayed inside because the offshore is still just way kicked up. And got a huge groundswell that's coming in from that hurricane that's out there or something. I'm not exactly sure. The wind shouldn't be producing the kind of groundswell that we have right now, but it's a big one. But inside the lagoon, we went from 81, 82 degree water temperatures, dropped all the way down to 64.5 degrees that I had this morning when I got on the water, right there about day, right at sunup.
Wow, wait a minute, hold on now. Run that by me again. 82 to 64?
Yeah, it was 82 before the cold front, 64 after. And actually, I talked with Captain Mike Mann up in Ponce Inlet. He said his temperature was in the high 50s up there.
Man,
down at Canaveral and the Banana, it was mid 60s.
When I went to school, that was an 18-degree drop.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
That is something.
Well, here's what it did for the fishing. It shrunk everything, just like cold always does. It shrinks things.
I can attest to that. Go ahead.
Our snooks have gone from 38 inches to 18 inches, and our redfish have gone from 45 inches to 14 inches. And so everything shrunk. So we're fishing back in the canal systems, in around the dredge holes, around some of the bridges and things like that. A lot of small trout. The trout bite was really strong today. I was actually using a speckled perch or crappie bait, a saltwater assassin crappie dapper, the 2-inch size.
Oh,
on a little
old crappie dapper, huh?
Yeah, 1/16 ounce jig head. That was money all day long on whatever we needed to catch. We tried some shrimp, we tried some sand fleas, we tried some fish bites, we tried some, other things, and they just really weren't biting. The 4-inch sea shads weren't working too good. The 5.5-inch sea shads weren't working too good. Later in the day, the bigger mullet were moving around a lot, so we threw those bigger baits trying to get that bigger bite. And we did get a few trout that were in that 15 to 17-inch range on the 5-inch bait, but consistently the 2-inch bait out-caught the 5-inch bait even in the afternoon. So I would suggest that all the guys that are getting out there start small and work it very slowly. Just barely hopping it off the bottom, even dragging it. If you're in the flats and you're seeing depressions that fish are laying in, don't even swim it by them. Just drag it. And there's no grass. You don't have to worry about getting hung in the grass. Just drag it on the bottom and then hop it every so often and make it look like a little crustacean or shrimp, or a little goby minnow. And that seems to be the ticket right now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's good. That's very good. All right, well, man, I hope that water temperature. I'm surprised you caught fish today with that kind of water temperature, and I'm very pleased that you did. Now, Jim, I see it trending back upward a little bit this week. How about you?
Thursday and Friday, we're supposed to get some east-southeast to south winds. Obviously, that's going to bring our water temperatures up. But for the next 5 months, everybody's going to need to pay real close attention to water temperature and what the sun is doing. If the sun is not giving you, if it's not shining on a bank that you're fishing on, you need to get to a bank that it is shining on, because those fish are going to be more receptive to striking lures and baits than the ones that are hiding in the shadows and on the northern sides of, you want that southern exposure instead of that northern exposure. You're just going to get a more consistent bite.
I'm with you. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Looking forward to it, Rick.
Thank you, Jim. Take care. Captain Jim Ross checking in from Central Florida. Now we're going to head on down to South Florida and find out what's going on off Miami with Captain Alan Sherman. Alan, are you with us?
I am, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, but I have to tell you the truth, I'm a little bit cold, but it got mighty chilly up here.
I bet it did. It's cool here.
Cool
I
here?
think our
That's
lowest.
a new one.
I know. How about that? I think our lows here have been like 58 or so, but by mid-afternoon, it's probably 75 or so. It's real comfortable. But it's really really nice fishing conditions. Looking around right now, there's hardly a breeze, and we have had a pretty stiff northwest wind for most of the week. But I think it's starting to slacken up a little bit. But the fish have been cooperating fairly well. There's a nice variety of stuff going on. So let's start on the inside, okay?
Okay, I saw a picture you took of some great-looking muttons. I can't wait to hear about that, but go ahead and start inside.
So we got tarpon, snook, jack crevalles, and some snappers in the ocean inlets, and those fish have been biting pretty good on large live shrimp. Drifting through the inlets on the outgoing tide, mostly at night, but they're also biting in the late afternoons and early mornings. You can use a 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, maybe even a 1/2 ounce jig head. Attach the shrimp to that and just kind of let that thing out 50 feet or so. The tide is going to move you along pretty good, and it'll keep those baits from getting hung up in the bottom. But that's been working good on the tarpon and snook. Along the beaches, from the piers to surf, there's been Spanish mackerel, some bluefish, jack crevalles. There's snook and tarpon, and every time a big school of bait comes through, whether it be finger mullet, silvers, or black mullet, the tarpon and snook and big crevalles just go nuts on them. So that fishery is hot. If you can be there, or if you're there when the schools of bait fish come by. I mean, in between that, it's pretty slow, but when they do come through, the fishing's been good.
Alan,
Go ahead.
Are you still seeing as many mullet, or is the brunt of the mullet already gone?
No, we've hardly seen any, really.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
just recently, just the other day, I saw the first school of black mullet in the bay.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I took a trip 2 weeks ago up to Jupiter, and that area had so much bait, it was just ridiculous. I honestly haven't seen that much bait in probably 20 years, but that was in Jupiter. Often these bait fish schools either pass us offshore or they don't come down that far. And we haven't seen schools like I saw in Jupiter 2 weeks ago settle in North Bay or South Bay or even along the beaches. Any bait fish schools, especially the mullet schools, they're moving quickly, and even the pilchard schools. We've only recently seen big schools of large pilchards move into our area, and that's just recent. So
Good.
I do believe we still have a lot more to come by us. At least I hope so, because we haven't really had much in the way of Spanish mackerel or bluefish. There's some along the beaches. There's some a little further offshore, say 30, 40 feet of water. But that's only happened recently. You got to keep in mind, a week ago, it was still in the 80s, upper 80s here. Yeah. So it's still pretty warm. But there is something pretty cool going on. There's big schools of ballyhoo in our area. Yeah. And the sailfish are chasing those ballyhoo.
Oh,
sometimes as shallow as 20 feet of water. Oof. I've seen some reports of some guys sight casting them. Crystal clear waters down off of Cary Sport and a little further north of that. So there's also Cirro mackerel, Spanish mackerel, big crevalles, bonitas chasing those ballyhoo schools as well. Talking about those muttons, the shallow reefs, the shallow patch reefs have been holding really nice mutton snappers that we've been able to chum to the surface. We also had some gag groupers recently, up to 11 pounds, and that's all associated with this fall, temperature changes and the bait fish schools coming down. So yeah, we've got some good fishing going on here.
Oh, that's excellent. That is absolutely outstanding report. I think you got a lot more mullet coming your way. They're hung up between us because it's really gotten chilly up here. Our water temperature dropping down into the high 60s now. So they're south of us and north of you, but that's good news for you. Alan, as always, we appreciate it. And please tell me we can check with you next week.
Look forward to it, Rick.
Thank you, Captain Alan Sherman. Now, No place better than Islamorada, Florida, if you're a fisherman. Let's go check in with our man from down there, Captain Brandon Bean Storin. Captain Bean, how we doing?
Good. How are you doing, Rick?
Excellent, buddy. Except it's cold up here, Brandon.
Man, you ain't kidding. I definitely got the hoodies and jackets on.
I'll be darned. You even got them on down there?
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh, it's cold. It was 62 degrees yesterday morning and this morning as well.
Shut up. That ain't cold. Okay, we know what cold is up here. That ain't cold. I want to hear about your fishing.
Well, this cold weather has been definitely pushing some fish down. It's pushed a good Spanish mackerel bite in the backcountry. Definitely pushing some more sailfish on the ocean side. It's also been bringing in some grouper and buns in the shallower water, which is cool. Also, there's been a couple African pompano caught offshore, which was kind of a really cool surprise, for seeing that fish this early in the season. So, yeah, that cold front definitely pushed some things down. Seeing some more sheep's head in the backcountry and some more red drum and black drum as well. So,
now
winter is among us.
Brandon, where do you guys see sheep's head? Where are they, around your bridges, or where are they down there?
So we see them kind of around the moats around the islands in the backcountry. Also, if you're fishing just like a mangrove edge, while you're trying to fish for snook and reds, sometimes if you're doing that with live shrimp, you'll run into a sheep's head.
Yep. How long have you fished out of Islamorada?
Oh, I will say, let's see, since 2017.
I would think, to me, in my mind, it seems to me like your redfish fishing has probably gotten better in the last 4 or 5 years, hasn't it?
Well, what's really funny is that this year we're seeing a good number of them. Last year was not as good as the year before, so it almost seems like there's a pattern. So, but I will say from when I used to come down here and visit and hard out married when I was a kid, it seemed like there wasn't as many redfish as there are now.
I'll be darned. Brandon, I didn't mean to sound distracted there. We have a deer on our property somewhere who we have named Catfish Hunter from the old movie Grumpy Old Men, and Catfish Hunter is currently standing at my feet, or my spy point camera tells me. That's a good thing. Hello, Catfish. All right, Brandon.
That's exciting.
Yep. We accept that I'm not there. Now, yesterday afternoon, I was there. He wasn't there. All right, buddy.
No, that's how it goes.
Oh, that's always how it goes. That's a great report. We appreciate it so much, Brandon. How can folks get a hold of you if they want to go fishing out of Bud and Mary's?
They can call Bud and Mary's Marinas themselves at 305-664-2461. Just ask for Captain Bean. That'll be the best way to get a hold of me.
They want a trip with Captain Bean. You got it, Cap. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you, Brandon. Take care.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species, from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Captain Brandon Storn for a great Islamorada report. Now we're going to swing over to 10,000 Islands and say hello to my buddy Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Rick. How are you doing?
Not doing well.
What's going on?
Well, I have a Spy Point camera and on my deer lease, and the deer that we call Catfish Hunter, after the mythical catfish and grumpy old men, is standing at my feeder. My camera says right now.
And you're talking.
He's there right now, Steve. You understand what I'm telling you? Right now.
I do.
Okay.
'Tis the season.
I can drop him like a bad habit. I mean, I'm telling you what. Go. Why weren't you there yesterday, old man? I tell you what. Tell me about your fishing, Steve.
You know what? We've been talking for weeks. It seems like about when's this Red October going to happen? We're in it now, finally.
Good.
Yep, all hands on deck, and and just as predicted, we just needed that water temp to get in the mid to even low 70s, and it's on right now. I mean, the reds are bunched up on the outside islands, pretty much all the way from Marco Island all the way through Chokoloskee, and you just got to make a big milk run of spots and follow the tide, and either tide's working. That's the good part, and that's the nice part about this time of year is you can catch them on an incoming or an outgoing, higher or low. You just need to know how to set up on these islands. And it's pretty logical. Just sit on the outside as the water's low and just work your way in as you go spot to spot. Kind of save your best stuff for, maybe those little bit higher tide stages because those fish will be even further bunched up, closer to the mangroves and oyster bars and things like that are kind of on the outsides. And keep in mind, this is a good time to kind of get on Google Earth and really understand the topography of what those outside islands look like, because they're obviously all different. Some have long arms that come out, shoals. You got to heed a little caution navigating, and you can ultimately spook the fish too. So have a little bit of understanding. Probably don't extend yourself too much as far as spots. Maybe learn a half a dozen to a dozen really well, and kind of, try to be efficient about how you go through it. But, they're, those big fish that were kind of offshore, they're in now. We're seeing a lot of fish over 30 inches right now. They're healthy. The nice part is the water temp hasn't dropped too much, so the snooker's still around, albeit there's more numbers than big fish on the snook side, but it's fishing great. It really, this is what we kind of wait all year for in our region, at least from an inshore standpoint, and it's upon us. And got a nice another little cold front coming here, and probably predict that probably every week now, for the next couple of months till the water, till everything kind of stabilizes. But these are kind of subtle cold fronts; they're not harsh. It's just enough to kind of get that water temperature down and keep it down. So,
what's your water temperature now, Steve?
It depends where you're at in the region and ultimately how dirty the water is, or how dark it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be dirty, but we're anywhere from 76 all the way down to 72. So it really depends on, where you're at. And, we're pretty far south. I'm sure it's a lot more chillier up by you.
Yeah, but, it's a lot more chilly, I promise you. Are you like the rest of us, though? You find when it starts dropping, you guys kind of got to slow down with your presentations?
A little bit. I think, there's that first wave of fish is aggressive, and they've been really, like we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks, they've been really sitting out in the Gulf, and, they want to come in, and they've been kind of bored out there, I think. So they were pretty aggressive right off the bat, but now that, it's a pretty, there's no big secrets on this pattern in our region each fall, so everybody kind of knows it. But yeah, so slowing down and kind of really working your area, is going to be of your benefit, because I think, they're seeing a lot of baits right now, a lot of artificial, a lot of live bait. And I think people are trying to, I always preach kind of make your milk run to your spots, but I think that's also, you're missing some fish too. So if you have some things and have the patience to slow down, fish those half a dozen spots, and you're going to be rewarded because you're going to catch fish that most people miss.
Gotcha. Outstanding. What a great report. And another picture just came through. And you can go to hell, catfish hunter. You go straight to hell is what you can do. But I'm going to kill that deer, I promise. All right, Steve.
Yeah, you will. I can't wait to see it.
I appreciate the heck out of it, buddy. Thanks a lot. Our thanks to Steve Dahl, who said the redfish that have been holding offshore because the weather was so hot for so long have now moved inshore in 10,000 Islands. That brings us up to Southwest Florida, where Greg Stamper, we got to check in and see if they've moved inshore there, too. Greg, what's going on in Southwest Florida?
Oh, wow, man. Steve, he's a little bit further south than me, but we had this happen last week where we started seeing fish that were silver, and silver tells me they're coming in from offshore. So, absolutely. It just took them a little bit longer to get down there where he was, but that's all good. We've caught a lot of redfish this week, and the best part about it is it's a mixed bag of different sizes. In the past, last year and a half, we didn't get very many fish that were undersized or even on the lower slot, which was concerning to me.
You had told me
this
that.
last week. Oh, yes, absolutely, Rick. This last week, we finally started seeing a mix. We get some fish that were over slot, under slot, not really too many under slots, but they were like 18, 17 inches, give or take, but they were silver, and they're moving into our back bays, which was fantastic. Now, I can tell you something that you need to come down and do with me. The pompano are starting to show up.
Golly, now that's weird because they hadn't even shown up in Jacksonville on the East Coast yet, and I'm afraid that they all slid by with this massive northeaster we've had up here for the last week.
Yeah, no, I got you there. We can occasionally, even in the summertime, here and there, tag a few of them, but the ones that we're catching now are still big. But what I do think will happen, Rick, is we're going to start seeing a lot more smaller fish, especially around our passes and on our nearshore waters, that are going to start showing up as this water keeps continually cooling down. We've had, 2 fronts now that have kind of dropped the temperature down to 72, 71, 73, depending on where you are. And those fish are going to come in full speed. We still need a little bit of cleaning water. So we need some tides. They're going to clean the water up and make this fishing really good. But I can guarantee you in the next week or two, we're going to be talking a lot more about those pompano.
Oh, good. That's a great report. That's great news. I know nobody's been offshore much down there, and, of course, the ocean's been pretty much closed except for all the biggest and the baddest of the boats. But I tell you, we've had nothing to do with it. We had seas reported up here of up to 15 feet. That ain't my kind of weather, Cap.
No, I completely understand. There was 1 or 2 days where some of the guys got to get off there offshore. They went out there to try and catch mangrove snappers and lanes and stuff like that. But they got into some areas, Rick, around 100 feet where they really did very good on porgies. And I can't even believe some of these guys didn't throw one of those in my cooler. I'm a little pissed off about that part.
I tell you what, there's some of the porgies. Now, I'm not great on the red porgies, but
no, these are jolthead.
The jolthead porgies, I'm all over those bad boys. Now, we call those white bones up here, and man, that's some good eating.
You got it, man. Absolutely.
Okay, buddy. Greg, great report. We appreciate it as always. I hope we can talk to you next week.
You got it, buddy. I'll talk to you next week. Looking forward.
Okay, Captain Greg Stamper. Hey, that means it's time to head up into West Central, but before we check in with Ray Markham, let's hear a word from D.O.A. Well, there's one thing for sure. It's fall now, buddy. And how many of us have been waiting for the magic of the mullet run to start, with literally miles of mullet moving along just about every area of the Florida coastline? What you need to cash in on for the tarpon, snook, reds, trout, tarpon, and flounder that are feasting on the poor fingerlings is the perfect mullet imitation. Well, for my money, you can skip all the high-dollar made-in-China mullet imitations. For me and all the podcasters I've talked with, the perfect mullet imitation is made right here in Stuart, Florida. It's called the D.O.A. Bait Busters. Mark Nichols, the owner and manufacturer of D.O.A., spent years designing different bait busters to swim shallow, medium, or deep. What makes Bait Buster so special? I think it's the tail. If that bait buster is moving, his tail is flapping. No predator can stand that tail wagging in his face. The D.O.A. Bait Buster, the perfect mullet run bait. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report. Now, we're going to move into West Central and check into the man himself, Captain Ray Markin. Raymond, how are you?
Greetings. Still shaking off some cool weather here.
Woo, come on, it got a little chilly, didn't it?
Well, it's been blowing upwards of about 25 to 30 and gotten down into the 50s at night, and water temperature took a dump of about 10 degrees.
We call this fall. It is now fall.
Yes, sir. Well, it's crazy time right now for fish because they don't know where they're coming or going.
Yep.
So it's been a challenge, to be honest with you. You know, they had the King of the Beach tournament this last weekend out in Madeira Beach here in the Gulf, and there were a lot of guys that actually bailed. They moved the tournament from Saturday to Sunday because of the high wind warnings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that, it was pretty sparse stuff coming in, with the winning fish being, I think it was somewhere around 35 pounds, 34 and change. And, you know, maybe about 20 fish on the board.
Yeah, 34 pounds of good fish. It ain't no winner at King of the Beach, I can tell you that.
Well, it's definitely, you know, that was the outside. That was the real high.
Yeah, wow.
And the majority of them were running probably closer to 22 to 24 pounds. They weren't really huge fish. They were fish that would have been, you know, middle of the back of the pack of 600 boats last year. But, you know, with the numbers of boats being down due to the cancellation movement of the tournament last minute, there were a lot of people that come from out of town, and they just had to skedaddle and say, we're going to have to pass on it, you know. So,
yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, there's still a lot of fish around. It's just the conditions were not conducive for guys getting out offshore is the whole problem.
Yep.
And, you know, mackerel fishing's been real good. Just prior to the blow, things were getting a little squirrely with the water temperature dropping and all. And I figured it might have been actually better fishing last week just before this last front, but it really didn't pan out on the western side of Tampa Bay. On the eastern side of Tampa Bay, all the way down to Bradenton, Sarasota area, they had some really good fishing. We had some high winds out of the east that were laying the water flat down on the coast on the other side of the bay, and on our side of the bay here, it got all churned up. So I think that really was the difference of the decent fishing versus what we had here. So, you know, it's that fall fishing thing. It's the same every year, and fish are in transition. And boy, howdy, this was the first real decent blast of cool air we've had, and those snook hightailed it. So,
well,
they're looking to head back to creeks. Yep.
They'll settle down once this weather settles down a little bit, and when they do, they'll be starving. There ain't no doubt about it. So that's
well, that's a fact. You know, I did see plenty of bait the end of last week, just prior to the front coming in. But you know, that bait has a tendency to want to go deep too. So I'm guessing the guys, once this wind settles down, just off the beaches out there'll be plenty of bait out there, and those fish will be coming in, charging and eating. So
yeah, I can tell you, Ray, in our area, I don't know how it is in yours, but in our area, we still have mullet in the river. You just won't see them on the surface where you can just walk up to them and cast on them when you want to catch them. But if you look down in the water, look as hard as you can, all you need to see is that one silver flash, and you better be firing a cast on it.
Yeah, I hear that. But, you know, honestly, I can't say I've seen the schools of mullet that we should be seeing this time of year. Right now, they should have had their first little pile of fish run out of the passes out in the Gulf to start spawning, but I honestly haven't seen schools of fish to really say that was going on. You know, you see a few fish here and there, but just not any big schools.
Yeah,
so,
I think that'll change very soon
scary.
now.
I hope so. I hope there's enough fish left around. I mean, after the red tide finished up with everything, there were a whole lot of fish that kind of went by the wayside. So hopefully they'll do their thing, and we'll have a whole big pile more coming on next year.
I'm counting on it. All right, Cap, a great report. We appreciate it. You got to give us a word when it's tough. If you give us a word when it's great, you got to give it to us when it's tough, too. And sounds to me right now it's tough, but better days are right ahead. Thank you, Raymond.
Yeah, they are. We'll talk
appreciate
to you.
It. Captain Ray Markham from West Central. Hey, before we go up to check in with Big Ben and William Toney, let's hear a word from Shimano. You know, there's one thing just about all our podcasters have in common. We rely on Shimano gear when the good day is on the line. Whether it's Jim Ross chasing a tarpon with a Saragossa spinner, Alan Sherman catching muttons on his bait runners, Shimano gear is everywhere in Florida. You see, Shimano builds a reel for just about every fish that swims, and it seems like every year they come out with new models and names that it takes me 6 months to learn how to pronounce. But you know what? There's also a few models that have stood the test of time. And standing at the top of the brand, even today, if I'm fishing an inshore spinner, be it fresh or salt, you can count on the fact I'm throwing a Shimano Stratic. That's just because it's been around the block and it just never fails. And if there's a blue water boat looking for a sea monster, I can almost promise you there's Shimano Tiagras in the rod holders pulling the big fish baits. Why do the best blue water guys count on Tiagras year after year? For the same reason I always throw a Stratic when I need to hook a redfish for my granddaughter. Because when the best day is on the line, you can count on the time-tested Tiagra and Stratic from Shimano. That means it's Big Ben time, and let's check in with William Toney. William, how are you?
Doing good up here on the Big Ben, and nice cool out this evening and everything, and the rain has finally stopped.
Yes. I didn't know if it was ever going to, but it has.
Yep. But you know what? Yeah, Rick, we're talking about the Big Ben and a little bit of cold fronts. Early in November is kind of good. I'm just hoping that it's not one of those freeze yourself to death, early in the winter, then, wear shorts from January on. But one thing that I know, it's pushed a lot of snook up in our rivers on the Big Ben, even up there around Swanee and up towards Steenahatchee have been getting snook, in the last couple of years. But this cold front has pushed them, midways up the river. I'm sure the further north you get from Homosassa, they're a little bit further up the river. But here in Crystal River, Homosassa, and the Chazawiska, you can catch a lot of snook right now underneath the docks, about midway out the river from Hell's Gate, all the way back up toward McRae's. There's good snook, and it hasn't got cold enough yet to push them all the way up into the springs. Now, if we get a little bit of warm up this week, they'll drop back out toward the river mouths and on the flats around some of our deeper creeks, and you'll be able to get them on those Marilure Maridines, those D.O.A. Glow 305 jerkbaits, nose hook. So, just we'll let it warm up a little, and they'll be easy catching right now. And you still got one more month if you want to get one in that 28 to 33-inch range, but a lot of them in the river are going to be shorts, but you'll have good action.
All right, now give me a little oceanography study here. They're headed up the river because you have springs in each one of those rivers that they'll be able to get warm in?
Absolutely. One thing I always tell folks that they're in our area are spring-fed rivers here in Citrus County. You got Chazawiska, Homosassa, and Crystal River. We got 3 first magnitude springs that stay a steady 70 to 72 degrees all year long. So it's kind of reverse because, I talk about incoming tide, good for redfish on the outside in the Gulf. But one thing about the rivers, when you get these northeast flows with the wind, it blows us to some negative tides. But what it does do is sucks that warm water all the way throughout the river. So you'll find little bends and little eddies in places where that water temperature may be 4 to 5 degrees warmer than, say, mid-channel. And you'll find pockets of fish all the way out to the mouth of the river toward the Gulf. So, it's good to check out and fish those, especially, I've caught trout, mid-river using just jigs and soft plastics, a lot of black drum. You'll get some redfish. You'll get mangrove snapper. So, it can be a windy day and you can still got, fish to catch in the river and have that windbreak and that warm flow of water.
I see. Well, that's an outstanding tip. That helps a lot. So your redfish still biting pretty good?
red fishing has been good. Now we're going to have negative tides coming up to this, full moon right now. This coming week on the Big Bend, our tide swing is going to be low midday, which on the outside is still where you're going to find most of your redfish now. It dropped down to last week. Our water temperatures got down to about 68. So I imagine it's somewhere still around 65, 68 with a warm up around 70, 72 degrees. So not enough to send the redfish scurrying up, but with those negative tides, if you're looking for those big incoming tides where you can target them on the points and things like that, probably not going to happen this week. It will not happen till next week with the negative midday low tides. But if you're an angler that loves to fly fish or sight cast and you got a good buddy with strong arms that can pull the boat, you're in there.
Gotcha. What a great report. William, as always, we appreciate the heck out of it. I think the guys have got a lot to look forward to on the backside of this front. And I hope they get with you and enjoy it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be right here in downtown Homosassa, and hopefully I can tell you about the backstrap that I fried up and ate the past weekend.
You know what? You and I ought to have we need a bet. Whoever drops the first one has to give one of the backstraps to the other guy.
You know what, Rick, I'd love to do that with you, but I've worked so hard. I learned a long time ago bets aren't good because I'd cry the whole time I gave it to you.
I know. And
but you know what?
And let me tell you what else is not good while we're talking about things that are not good, okay? I got this little piece of property up in Dooley County, Georgia, that I got primarily for my oldest stepson because he loves deer hunting like I love fishing. And so wouldn't you know it, on our cameras, we get this buck that we named Catfish Hunter. Okay, he's the greatest, right? Well, I sit down Saturday evening, and I haven't been sitting there 15 minutes, and out steps Catfish Hunter. But he's walking right toward my son's blind. We've got a trail between our blinds, and he's on it. And I'm like, don't you do it, don't you do it, don't you do it. So I put my gun there, and that rascal not only never showed up at my son's, okay, but, William, then you can't shoot. Then you're like, no, I can't shoot. I got to wait for him to come back.
I'm telling you.
I'm just, I can't give away, I can't blow my cover here. So it turned into a venison-less weekend. I think I'm going to turn into a vegetarian or something.
Well, here on the Big Bend, it's illegal to shoot a swimming deer, and we got plenty of water, so it's making it tough for us over here. So, but it's going to happen, Rick, and here's our bet. What we'll do, when one of us gets a deer, we'll get together one evening, and we'll have fried backstrap, rice and gravy, and we'll just call it a day. How's that?
I'm all for it, Cap. You're on. We appreciate it, William. Thank you so much.
All right, bud. We'll see you.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye. All right, our thanks to William Toney for a great Big Bend report. You know what that means? We got to get out of the Panhandle. We can't do that till we talk to Tyler Massey. Captain Tyler, how are you?
We're doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
I'm doing excellent, buddy. What's going on out in Pensacola?
So, for the most part, we've been staying inshore. We've probably most of the area. We had some cold fronts come through.
Yep.
A lot of wind going on. Not much offshore fishing. Inshore bite, though, we're getting in, going from our summer pattern, into our fall winter pattern, and that's going to be, not as much action throughout the bay, but fish are kind of more congregated into smaller areas. Fishing's a little different. We slow down our fishing. So one thing that we get every fall is the bull redfish move into our bay system, and we catch them they're chasing menhaden schools and that kind of stuff on the surface, and it's a lot of fun. This last week or so, they've really pushed into the bay, and we've been finding them pretty regularly. And these fish are in schools. It could be 500 fish, 1,000 fish, just an enormous number of fish, and they eat just about anything you throw at them. It's been pretty good. It takes some time finding them some days to do some driving around, some looking. But when you do find them, it's been great action.
That's real good. That's very good. Well, I know the ocean's certainly been closed. Have your trout picked up in this cooler water like everybody's have?
So they're transitioning a little bit. We're going from catching them on the grass and between docks and stuff like that, in the bays, and then they're moving towards the canals and up there by the river. So when we fish the canals, there's several canals in the center of the sound and some bayous and stuff in Pensacola. We want to fish the deeper areas of these canals, and we use a lot of artificial, like mirror lure, mirrodine, D.O.A shrimp, just any of that kind of stuff you can do a slow retrieve with. And the action's picking up. It's not red hot yet. We need a couple more cold days to get it really fired off, but it's definitely picking up.
Gotcha. Outstanding. All right, buddy. Well, that's a great report. We appreciate the heck out of it. I'm hoping for better weather for you before we talk again.
Sounds good, Rick. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Tyler. Take care, bud.
All right.
That does it. That'll conclude our trip around the state for this week. And gosh, it's been fun checking in with the boys. A lot of us feeling the effects of this very, very strong northeaster. The East Coast getting hit with a tremendous amount of water from the surge from all this northeaster combined with the full moon, high tide, and it's just been a perfect combination of floods. But just like David Voorhees told us, it's time to get back on the water, and the fish will be biting. It's just finding them and being in the right place. As you head down the coast, Jim Ross, I tell you what, he said that things have actually not been too bad. There's no grass around, but the trout have been biting. They're just not real big. The reds haven't been real big, but that's all our stock for the future, so that's very, very good. You get down to Miami, and mutton snapper is the fish of the week this week. They've been doing quite well with them just in the bay and on the patch reefs just offshore, so that's fantastic news. Down in the Keys and in Miami, they're seeing more sailfish. The sailfish are starting to chase the bait up into shallow water, and that makes for some unbelievable sight fishing if you've never done it. You get around coming up the southwest, that's where the boys are telling us that the big reds have moved inshore, and they're catching 30 and 32-inch reds inshore on artificials, and that's a lot of fun. There's no getting around that. It's well worth throwing that fish back to ensure our future. I guess Ray Markham had about the toughest report this week. He said things have not been real good for them ever since the red tide went away again. Just seems like we're getting so many red tides the last few years. But you get out the Panhandle, and Tyler Massey's happy as can be. Schools of reds are chasing the menhaden up into the bay over there, and guys are having a ball sight casting the big redfish. So all in all, fishing goes on in Florida just like it always does, and we're here to cover it for you. Hey, listen, we would love to hear from you. You can email me at rick@floridasportsman.com, or please go on the Florida Sportsman Facebook page. Tell us how you like the podcast. Tell us how we can make it better, and leave me any questions that you'd like us to ask our podcasters. Today's podcast was brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream billfish vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, it's the unfair advantage. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. For Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, I'll see you on the rip.